Okay, I'm thrilled to introduce to you my next guest, Judd Porter. Judd is a longtime friend of mine from Andrews, Texas. And Judd, when I think of you, I was thinking about our friendship and thinking about what I've seen and who you are, and frankly, I think I'm going to let you introduce yourself. But the things that come to mind when I think about you are you're a follower of Christ, you're a husband to Kobe,
Mhm.
you are a son to Denny,
Yeah,
who you're the third generation in the Porter grocery business. You're a father to some great kids. You're a brother and a leader. This is a family business. You work closely with your brother Trey and your brother-in-law T.O.,
mhm.
Candace's husband. You're a Baylor Bear,
Yes.
and you're a teacher. I have
Mhm.
been at your offices when I've seen you interacting with your kids and nieces and nephews when you're actually teaching
I
things,
forgot
which I
about
thought
that.
was really cool. You're a community member. You support your community, and you're a successful businessman. But frankly, what I'd rather do is let our listeners and those that are watching this actually hear you introduce yourself and tell them who you are.
Well, I appreciate that introduction. That made me smile because I love all those things that you just mentioned. Uh, and that it really does a great job of describing who I am. I'm a blessed man, is who I am. I believe that we control our attitude and our effort and the decisions we make, but the outcome is not up to us. And I've been blessed with great outcomes in many areas of my life. And so, yeah, I'm married to Kobe. We've been married 26 years, 24 years, almost 25. And we have four kids. Carson and Claire are at Baylor, and then we call them the littles that are at home with us still, Ainsley and Callaway, and we homeschool our kids. We have since they were starting elementary school, and have had great success with that. It's been really good for our family. It's afforded us the opportunity to travel, and we've enjoyed that very much. But operate our business. We have primarily a grocery business, as you mentioned, and that's been a huge blessing to our family. And it's been something that I look back on the path that led me back into the family business, and I'm so grateful that we're where we're at today. And then in times like we've all experienced this last year, that's become more evident. But I'm a teacher. I teach Sunday school, teach my kids, help when I can with the homeschool. I'm not very good at that, but I do help when I can. And then uh, really, I guess what defines me is I'm a follower of Christ, and I try to uh, follow His will for my life in every step. And sometimes that gets confusing, and but most of the time that's for the path that I'm on. So that's a little bit of who I am.
That's great, Judd. And I think about I think of a specific instance with COVID, and think about how your business started a delivery. See, what was it? I can't remember what you call Roundup. No, Community Volunteer Project.
Yeah.
That I think started as a direct result of COVID. What tell our
Yes.
listeners about that?
That was I was really fun. It was fun to see that all play out. I had a friend of mine's wife called and said she wanted to deliver groceries to people who couldn't get out. She wanted to help, and said asked if I could organize volunteer delivery folks. And I said, well, I bet we can. So we went to work with that, and we actually have just one paid staff member that organized it. And in fact, the lady that thought it up, I asked her if she wanted to organize it, and she said, "Oh no, I just want to volunteer." And so what we did was we assigned different elderly or high risk people to a volunteer shopper. We got them T-shirts. The volunteer shoppers all had their T-shirts, and they were assigned maybe two or three different folks that needed help, and they would just communicate with one another. And our organizer would help with that, or assign new folks if that needed to happen. But it really turned out to be a great thing for our communities. We're still doing it to this day, and it took on its own life. And the beautiful part about it, as a businessman, was I didn't need another task, but
Right.
it was purely volunteer driven, and it has been a resounding success. I actually got to participate. One of our volunteers was out, and so I got to step in and go deliver groceries, and that was kind of fun. I enjoyed that, so I got to experience that from that side. But really, an amazing team effort in our community is all it was. It was really nothing that we did. It was just that we were able to be a part of that and organize it a little bit, and then let it run its course. So,
Well, I also read about Roundup for Hunger. What is
yes.
that?
2 years ago, my wife's involved in a ministry organization called Orphan Outreach, and Orphan Outreach serves orphans, obviously, and underserved kids all in several different regions in the world. We're primarily involved in Guatemala. We've traveled with them to Russia as well. But on one of the trips, I was praying about, why am I so involved with this organization? I know my wife's role, but what draws me to it? And I really felt like God was drawing me to it so I could make connections between people. And so Roundup actually started as Roundup for Orphans the first year. And we all had no idea how that was going to play out. We got our POS company involved so we could have the button on the register that we had to have. And so what we set up was, after the transaction at the register and your bill is $12.72, the computer and the checker asks the customer, would you like to round up to $13? And that 28 cents go to Orphan Outreach originally. And so we told Orphan Outreach we were doing it. We had no idea what it was going to generate, but we raised over $100,000. Our customers did in the first year. And so it really was. It was a blessing to kids all over the world. I know personally kids who were able to continue their education because somebody gave 22 cents in a register.
That's great.
And so we did that for a year, and then we decided we would make a transition and do food banks, the local food banks. So we got food banks in all of the communities we serve, and connected with them, and of course redid all of our signage and all that. And so now it's Roundup for Hunger, and what a great year to be doing that with food banks that are overwhelmed right now with people that are in need. And we're on track to again break the $100,000 this year, given to local food banks. And the beauty is, we serve in these small rural communities out here in West Texas, and so they don't get a lot of support. So it was nice to be able to give that level of support out here, and so again, it's driven by the communities. They're the ones that are doing it, not us. And so that's been a really fun thing to watch.
So you're facilitating your community, helping your community is what you're doing.
That's it. Yeah.
And
so we'll take times and we'll match and we'll do things to bump it, but it is by and large a community event.
Well, and that's great, Judd. And you may fire me as your attorney after this, because everything that we do for you legally is confidential. But I remember you calling me very early on when COVID just started, and it was a hard time, and it had hit, the economy had skidded to a stop. And one business you guys are involved in is you own some retail property, and you called me and said, Johnny, we just want to do a moratorium for a certain period of time on some of our rent. And I said, well, that's great. Do you tell me when do you want to collect that rent that you're delaying? And you said, I don't. I'm just going to not collect it for a period of time. And so a letter was sent from you to some of your tenants that essentially what you said is, this is from us. The only thing we ask in return is pass it on. And That is, I want to shift kind of into your business, but as I think about your business, I looked up your primary business started in 1945. Your grandfather Ray,
Hmm.
and he moved from McKinney into Andrews, I suppose.
He actually moved from a small town in Oklahoma called Coal Pool, Oklahoma.
Okay,
And neither one of us have ever been there. In fact, I was told it doesn't exist.
okay, okay. And in 1945, and he started a grocery store or
uh,
bought it or started it, I suppose.
Started it. Yes. There's
Okay.
pictures of him with a sawhorse actually building his first grocery store.
Okay. And then your father, Denny, was a second generation.
That's
And
right.
then you and your brother Trey and your brother-in-law your sister Candace's husband, now are working as a team running that operation.
Correct.
And I love as I look at your website. Here's what I read. Of many great things. It says, greeted with a warm smile as we gladly welcome you to our store. We think treating people well is the right thing to do. We love people in the communities we serve. And that's maybe what an incredible motto. But it seems to me that that's the way you run your business. Is that
It
right?
is. It is. We try to do that at every turn, but we're not successful. But we try every turn to love our customers and the communities we're in, and treat everybody well. It's been difficult. It has for sure this year, but it's been our motto, and you know, we have it on the walls in some of our grocery stores. The ones that we've remodeled, that gets put on the wall. Treat people well.
Well, I can
So,
remember the first time that I think I was in Andrews at one of your stores. You were giving me a tour, and all of a sudden, I can't remember if it was you or Trey, just kind of immediately walked off. And what I noticed is that there was a customer that was waiting, and you made sure that there was another checker.
mhm.
So even when you were getting, and of course, I'm not that important, but even when you're giving somebody a tour, you're always looking out for your customers. Let me
Yeah.
just ask you one more general question. You're not only involved in the grocery business, and I think mostly it's your generation. It's you and Trey and T.O., but you've expanded beyond the grocery business. What other businesses are you involved in, and what would you say about diversifying?
We're primarily involved in real estate at this point, outside of the grocery business, commercial real estate, and we've bought with a group of people. We bought a RV park resort in Colorado that we'd been going to and enjoying for years. So again, that's basically real estate. Uh, I'm very entrepreneurial, and so I've done a lot of different business deals. Frankly, most of them fall on their face, but that's just the way that goes.
Right.
Uh, the real estate, the reason we as a company decided to get into that was uh, the way we set up our corporation is we have two different companies. One that owns the operation, one's, as you full well know, one that owns the building that the grocery store's in. And we've looked up over the course of 15, 20 years and realized that those are actually two successful businesses. And the real estate side of it, uh, the reason we didn't even know it was a business was because it doesn't take a lot of effort. And so with that knowledge, I've got a close friend who's done well in real estate. And so I watched his business and how he operates. And so we decided to get into that. We were slow to start. We bought a small shopping center in Alpine and have done well with it. That's the one you spoke of earlier. It's been something that it was kind of a little depressed shopping center. We went in and polished it up a little bit, filled that thing up, and increased the value and the cash flow. And so uh, we really like the real estate because it doesn't require more effort. It doesn't require more employees. And so it was
Right.
something that we could bring alongside what we're doing. We're in the process of buying another shopping center, and we look at deals all the time. I looked at one just yesterday. We're probably going to try to do one a year, and it helps as we go into that next stage in life where we've got 9 kids between the 3 of us coming along. And how do you navigate the waters from 3 of us operating a business to that next generation? It rarely happens successfully. So we felt like it was important for us to have different entities or different things going that our kids could come along and participate in if they choose to. And so that was why we've done it. It's been something that we've really enjoyed doing. We'll see if there's success at the end of that road. It appears that we're on a good path for it, but time will tell.
Well, and I want to get into the operating family business. But I do want to ask, insert one. I was one real estate issue that you taught me. I was actually going to be interviewed on another podcast, and so because of your real estate investment, I called you and asked you what do you think is most important. And I during the podcast, I was talking to a real estate investor, and your advice was and this was during COVID, real estate during COVID, and your advice was stay in your lane.
Yeah.
And when I told the podcast person that I had a client who had told me that, and he said that was incredible advice, is to stay in your lane. And so, well done on that, by the way. Tell me about family and business can be tough. It frankly, through my 30 some odd years of legal practice, I've rarely seen it succeed. And yet you're the 3rd generation. And not only that, you are working and operating this very substantial business and the expansion of this very substantial. How many employees do you guys have, Judd?
We have right at 500.
500 employees, and you're running that with your brother and your brother-in-law and even your father to some extent. So talk to me about how do you navigate that?
Judd? Yeah, that is a difficult thing, and it's one that could be a podcast series. I think it's running a family business is unique because of the relationships involved have to be more important than the business. I have a friend that's involved in a university. I won't say which one, and they were discussing their coaches, and there was no discussion about the relationships, and you can't have that in a family business. So it's difficult. We said early on that we would burn this thing to the ground if it negatively impacted our family, that our family came first. All of us buy into that, even today. We've been blessed to have grown a business that is successful, but we would shut it down and shutter it if we couldn't get along. I'm seeing a friend of mine do that right now. And so that is number one, I think, why we're successful, is we have our priorities in order. I think you can't have any pride in a family business. I think we all do things differently. Years ago, probably 15 years ago, T.O. Trey and I, my brother and brother-in-law and I, were all sharing one office. They called it the bullpen. And we would argue and holler, and it was tough times. My brother was actively pursuing another career. My brother-in-law, I think he was looking for a way out too. And so I believe it was my sister that made us do a personality profile, these aptitude tests or something. And we were all, as men, we don't want to dive into our feelings or what we're thinking. And so we really didn't want to do it, but we did it because she's pretty forceful. And from that, we recognized where we have strengths and weaknesses. And we just divided up our roles in the business according to the strengths and weaknesses God's given us. And it really it revolutionized us. It gave us the ability to grow. As long as I stay in my lane, to use that same phrase, it works well. I'm the one that will get off in Trey or T.O.'s work and stick my nose where it doesn't belong. But as long as I don't, then we really do well together. Right now, we're terribly busy. T.O.'s building a building for us for one of our other businesses, and that's kind of in his realm. Trey's taking care of a lot of the employee, COVID issues and dealing with that part of it. And I'm trying to navigate the waters of financing for real estate and for different deals. And if we didn't do it that way, we wouldn't accomplish our goal. So I think family businesses can be stronger than a regular business, but you have to get to a point where there's a lot of trust and you don't get in each other's way and you let them run. But there can't be a top dog. We don't do titles. In fact, yesterday I signed a document and it said I had to have a title, and I don't have a title, and legally I know I do. You're like, yeah, you do. It's on the documents. We don't do that. And so I think I wrote on there, illustrious potentate is what I actually wrote on it. from something Trey came up with. So we don't do titles, and so it can work. It's a difficult thing to do, but it can work, and I think it can be really strong because it helps you put things in priority. If you're going to have a successful family business, you're going to have your priorities straight. And so, don't know if that helps. I don't know if it would transition to the next generation, but that's one of our biggest stresses right now is our kids are really close. How do we make sure they stay close?
Right.
I don't care if they make any money out of this company ever, as long as they have those relationships that they currently have. And so we're trying to figure that out. You and I have talked about it a little bit, and that's something that we've got to make some decisions on in years to come.
Well, you're providing a great example how you and Trey and T.O. are doing things, and we've talked about some of the lessons Denny has taught you and some of the conversations that you've had about him, with him, about not only the business but also some relationships that he built through the years and how important relationships are to him. And maybe you've answered this, Judd, but if there's a listener that is in a family business and it's beginning to look difficult and there's beginning to be squabbles. Just one or two points that you think that are most important things that perhaps they should think about to right the ship, if you will.
Man, that's difficult. Each situation is so unique. Really, if there's beginning to be squabbles inside of family business, I would honestly evaluate whether or not you want to go down that road. Because you have to make a bunch of personal changes. Everybody involved does. And is it worth the effort? And I think if I were starting a family business today and I was starting to have squabbles, I would try to divide the work, separate it like we did, and allow each other to flourish with the gifts that God's given them. And if you can't do that, if you're not able to overcome those squabbles, it's not worth it. Honestly, it's not. One of the most heartbreaking things I've seen is when family businesses drive a wedge between a family, because at the end of that, you don't have the business and you don't have a brother.
Right.
And that's not worth it.
Right.
Just not worth it. So you've got to make a hard decision there. If there's squabbles and you can't divide it and you can't start to get along and maybe put down your pride a little bit, don't do it. Sell that sucker while it has some value. Maintain your relationship with your family. It's more important than a business.
Well, that's great. That is great. Sorry, as my phone's ringing here in the background.
Okay.
Let's talk a little bit about, we're in the middle of the pandemic, or hopefully we're towards the end of the pandemic, but we've been in it for months as a businessman. And we've talked about some of your volunteer activities and charitable activities that your business has done. How, as a businessman, as an entrepreneur, what changes or challenges have been most important to you to continue the success of your business?
Well, It was difficult, and one of the main things that was difficult was dealing with the individual communities that we serve in, the municipal government. If you recall, when all this started, it was kind of like the Wild West. Everybody was doing their own thing, and I had health departments in one part of our area doing one way, operating one way, and then the other one over here doing something totally different, and would get mad at me if I wasn't doing their way, and I thought, well, I thought I was doing it right. So that was very difficult. And I spent a lot of time meeting with and on the phone with different county judges, city council folks, things like that. I bet I did a dozen Skype city council meetings just to hear where they're coming from and to be heard. So that was difficult, but it did, I think, I have a relationship now with a lot more people in leadership in those communities. So that's a good thing. I think the biggest change for us was and for all of brick and mortar retail, it has forced our hand when it comes to technology. Mm-hmm. I think it expedited the inevitable. I read this morning that retail's down like 1.1% for the month of November. And that's not a big chunk, but it's more than they expected. And so I think there's a titanic shift in the shopping patterns. We had been talking about doing, we call it click and pick in the grocery industry, where you go online, order your groceries, set up a time that you pull up in the grocery store parking lot, and they bring your groceries out. We've been talking about that for years, and I'm not a technology guy. I don't like dealing with it. I just as soon you and I be sitting across the table talking as on Skype, but that's not the world we live in. And so I've pushed and pushed that I didn't want to have to go down that road, but we did it. During COVID, we have ramped up and rolled out in one store. We call it Porter's Pickup. And so our customers can order online. They can just come pull in the parking lot. They don't even have to get out of their car, and we take the groceries to their car. And so that's one thing that's happened. I think we just ramped up our technology. I spent some time with our POS provider last week, and we're talking about adding more customer checkout where they can check themselves out, self-checks. And he said that that's all they're selling right now, that companies are really going towards that. And I hate it because I like that personal relationship between a checker and customers, but they don't want that right now. They don't want any contact with anyone. They want to be able to buy their groceries and get out of there without having that contact. So technology has been something that we've had to ramp up on, and all of retail has, not just us, but all of retail has. Another thing was we taking care of your employees. I've never dreamed that our employees were frontline workers. But in the middle of a pandemic, everything else was shut down but us. And so we had to change our focus and try to help maintain their health. We bumped their pay. Honestly, I thought it would be short-lived. Excuse me. But we're still in the midst of that because there's still added risk to being a checker in a grocery store. I never dreamed that would be the case, but it is today. So those are things that we made the shift on. It's made us evaluate a lot of things and become better businessmen. But there's not a one of us that wouldn't try to unring that bell if we could. We'd like to go back to precedented times, as I read the other day.
Well, do you think most of those changes are here to stay?
I do. Judd? I do. Yeah, that's why I said it just advanced the inevitable. I think the changes are here to stay. I think shopping patterns were going to change over the course of the next 5 or 10 years, and it did. I think this sped it up by a year or two. People don't want to get out anymore and go in, and I don't like that. I like the personal relationships that are developed, but it's here to stay. I believe it is.
Right.
And so we're looking at that, and that's why we're rolling out permanent technology. So.
Well, the grocery business, the retail grocery business, it's really it's a service industry, really is what it is.
Right.
And what do you think is if you're talking to your employees, what do you tell them is most important on how they work and how they interact with customers in providing the services you're providing?
I think it's probably empathy. If you can't put yourself in your customer's place, how can you help them fill their need? So when a customer comes in and they're needing a product, or we need to have the knowledge, and we need to be able to help direct them to that. But we also need to be able to understand where they're coming from. Customer comes in, especially during COVID, emotions are high, and they may be having a bad day, and they may respond to an employee sharply. And if you understand that most people don't do that unless they have a reason to. Maybe
Right.
mom's on a vent in the hospital, and she hadn't been able to see her in 3 weeks. Give a little grace there. So I think
Right.
empathy is it. I think if we can learn to put ourselves in other people's shoes, then we can help take care of their needs, and that's what customer service is. I was for 3 years. I was in. I had an insurance and investment office, and I hated it, but I survived it, and I wrote a lot of health insurance plans for grocerymen because that's who I knew.
Right.
And I can remember delivering the rate increase to Tom Velasquez, a common friend of ours.
Right. Right.
And I think he had a 16% rate increase, and they had hardly used their health insurance that year. And I was just, man, it just broke my heart for them. I know their business, and I know how tight the margins are. And here I am coming in, and with no reason, as far as they're concerned, giving them the rate increase. And I think it's one of the reasons I hated that business so bad was because I could not justify what I was doing. And I empathized with them too much.
Right.
And so I think that's what taught me that. But customer service is difficult because customers can be difficult. But if we operate from a standpoint of, where they at in their life, and how can I make their life better, I think we can go a long way with it.
Well, and based on what you just said, your answer, you're in a very unique position to answer my next question. I'm also in the service business, but I'm dealing more with businessmen and business people as opposed to, as are you, but you're dealing more on a personal level with people who are buying groceries for their home. And so when you were dealing with our common friend Tom Velasquez, you were providing the type of service that I provide, interacting
Right.
with businessmen. So for those of us who are in the service industry like I'm in, and the healthcare industry like you were in, what advice would you give us? Is it different, or is it the same, or what would you tell us?
Yeah, it's probably the same. I think God bless you. I know independent business folks are they're independent. They think they have all the answers. I'm speaking about myself right now for sure. We're hard to deal with. I think it's I think you've got to be able to communicate effectively and develop those relationships that allow trust to occur, and because you're dealing with a whole new level of customer service. Like you said, I'm selling eggs and milk, and you're dealing with really key decisions and things that impact a person's life. So I think empathy would be a big part of it. I think communication that takes time to develop, but you have to be able to communicate and that customer know that you're out there and that you're working and you're doing the things that they need you to do, and the time to do it. A lot of time folks get so busy with so many clients that they can't take care of them. and effectively, and so have the time to do it. But you know, that would be a tough one to deal with a lot of grocerymen, I can assure you.
Well, we've changed. Let's talk a little bit about our relationship, because
Yeah.
I've changed a little bit on how I've said on this program before, and would tell any attorney I'm talking to, that there's kind of been a natural conflict that's developed between attorneys and their clients through the years because of our billing system. We discourage calls
Yeah.
by billing our clients for every call, and so I'd like to find a way to shift that. And I'm you're humble, and you talk about I think that you're still learning. So am I after 35 years of practice.
Yeah.
But tell me, and I want you to talk to our listeners. Very bluntly and honestly about what you like and don't like about the current relationship that we've developed as a fractional general counsel, where we're billing you a certain amount per month for hopefully unlimited legal services. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, before we started that relationship, I'm sure you had noticed there was a hiatus in calls.
Right.
And I had taken the reins of the legal work in our business, which is a terrible thing to do. But I was reading all the contracts, and I was playing an attorney, and I didn't enjoy it, and I wasn't good at it. But like you said, there was, with the billing, the way it was structured and things like that, I would hesitate to call.
Right.
So when you mentioned the fractional general counsel, it sounded good to me. I wanted to be able to have a relationship with you guys where I could just reach out and send everything in. As I thought about that over the last few days, it's in the small things that it's the most beneficial, because say I've got a real estate contract I'm reading. I can read that and get through it and figure out if this is going to be decent or not. And so I wouldn't call an attorney. I'd do it myself. But at the end of the day, I'm not an attorney, and there's a million things that I could miss. So sending with the fractional general counsel, I'm able to send you everything that comes across my desk that needs an attorney's opinion. And it makes us a better business. It gives us more knowledge to make better decisions. And so it really has become something that I am grateful for. It's important in our business to have that, to be able to have that relationship with you guys. And I wouldn't want to unring the bell on that at all. You know, early on when we set it up, we weren't calling. I didn't have a lot going on, and it was. You even said, "Hey, we need to adjust the billing. You're not using this," and I was like, "Yeah, it's coming, Johnny. It's coming." And then it hit. In the last 2 or 3 months, I've been embarrassed at how much work I've been sending y'all's way. But because we have the fractional general counsel in place, it's really worked well. And y'all have been generous with your time and given great effort. And so I think it's answered a question that the legal industry has. I think it's something that a lot of folks need to go into. I would be a big proponent of that.
Well, thank you for that, and certainly, Judd, I want you to continue to help us I'm sure you want your customers to help you improve your business, and we want you to do the same for us. I have one last question, and usually I end with this question, but I actually have 2 questions. But so I'm going to ask you the last question I typically ask, and then I'm going to follow up. So what's the best advice that you would have for current and aspiring law professionals on how legal counsel can best serve businesses, business clients as yourself, as principal partners and advisors, not just lawyers? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think, you know, my job in operating a business is try to be the most efficient, effective businessman I can. I want to do things well, and I want to spend the least amount of money doing it. And an attorney needs to help us do that. And so with this fractional general counsel, that happens, honestly. So I think that's a big thing. I think attorneys should look at that and try to develop that in their practice. Build trust. You mentioned we've known each other for years and years. I was thinking back when I first met you, and I must have been a kid. I mean, it was a long time ago. And so over that time, we have a level of trust. And so when you tell me something, I have confidence in it. And so I think that trust has got to be built, and that takes time. It really does. But the way we're structured now, it's really elevated that trust because I don't hesitate to call. I really don't. And so that's allowed that to grow. But trust, communicate, and have empathy, understand what they're trying to accomplish. And I think that would go a long way. Sure would.
Well, Judd, thank you so much on behalf of myself and our listeners for taking the time with us. We've spent a long time today. Thank you for giving me that time. And thank you so much for the long mainly for our friendship, but also the long professional relationship we've had as well.
I appreciate that. Thank you. This has been really fun, and I've enjoyed our time together today and thinking about it coming into today.
Thank you, Judd.